Welcome to TGIF, and our word of the day is memories.
Oh, good memories or bad memories or anything in between. I think when we hear that word, we like to think of good memories because often I think we want to put the past behind us if those memories weren't what we want to recall. And here we are in Lamentations. I bet that's got something to do with it.
Yeah, and in Lamentations, remember, where it's following the book of Jeremiah, and Jeremiah was our prophet, and he was prophesying that Jerusalem was going to fall, and that God was actually going to use an evil empire, Babylon, to attack it and destroy it. And he warned the people, and the people would not listen. And so now Jeremiah is walking through the streets of Jerusalem in the desolation and everything that is wiped out. But it's interesting because this chapter is broken into two pieces, verses 1 through 11 and 11 to the end. So it's interesting because the first part of it is really reflecting back on the memories and looking at what's happened. But he uses these names, affectionate names: princess, referring to Jerusalem, our princess; Judah, daughter of Zion. These are names that are given to a city that reflect the relationship and closeness to God, and God's city, and how God protected this city forever. So the first 11 verses are really talking about the beauty of the city and how beautiful the city was. And so I think sometimes when we think back of memories, we think of how, people say, well, in the good old days.
I know you're going there.
It was better. But the reality is, they've fallen away from God, and so the protection of God went away. And so when we transition to our reading today, it's chapter 1, verses 11 and 12. You'll see we're transitioning now from a third-person narrative of Jeremiah admiring the beauty of the city to now a first-person connection to Israel.
Her people groan as they search for bread. They have sold their treasures for food to stay alive. O Lord, look, she mourns, and see how I am despised. Does it mean nothing to you, all you who pass by? Look around and see if there is any suffering like mine, which the Lord brought on me when he erupted in fierce anger.
So you see that transition from that narrative of verse 11. Her people groan as they search for bread. They have sold their treasure just to stay alive. What little they had, they have to sell just to stay alive. And so we transition into verse 12, where now it's much more, look, is there anything worse than what I'm suffering through? And I think when we talk about people who are suffering, we think about the wars going on and how the people are suffering in those places. But this is unique because this was God's city, and these were God's people that were under his protection always, but they drifted away into other idols. And so John Wesley has a lot to say about this. John Wesley, being that founder of the United Methodist Church, his sermon was connected to our duty in a state of affliction. So when we're suffering, what's our duty in suffering? How are we to respond? And he says it's truly a call to faithfulness in such times, because when you've lost everything, when you have nothing, all you have left is your faith. And so it does this switching back to the third person and the first person a couple times, but it ends up with this plea and prayer. But I think when we talk about, it's a good reality check for all of us. Right? It's about our state and where we are and when we're focused on God. Memories can sustain us.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We all have childhood memories that were good, but we all have childhood memories that were bad.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we grow in these times of suffering? When you're suffering, how do you respond?
Mm-hmm. A lot of times we like to complain because it's not a place that we want to be. And we have to remember that some of the memories, even though at the time when you're going through them might have been very difficult circumstances, there's something about how time passes that you can look back to a memory, and not that everything, because it might not have ended how you wanted it to. So it's not like it makes it better, but a lot of times you can go back and reflect and find where God was still good, even so, in the midst of tragedy and suffering and pain and so forth. So memories, they're good. In general, they are good, I would say. What did you say?
Yeah.
Whether it's not a good memory or it is a good memory, as long as you're looking for where God was at that moment, or maybe when you look back, you realize I wasn't looking for God in that moment because I wanted to stay in the place, or I didn't know how to get out of the place that I was in.
And it's probably one of the things that locks us into these battles with God sometimes, is that what Jeremiah is actually seeing here now is that it was God's fierce anger about how his people were responding to him and not looking to him for wisdom and knowledge and guidance. And I think that's what we see in the world today. So this is like a spiritual moment where you're reflecting on how your spirituality is in the larger universe, and how does your spirituality align with God right now. Maybe you're in a place where you don't feel like God's listening, right? Or maybe you've lost a lot and you're trying to understand, how is God at work in any of this?
God is good is a famous saying we like to use, and we often see it used when something goes someone's way. God is good. God is so faithful. But it's really the times of this, during a lament season of something we're going through, to be able to say, God, you're still good, even though it's not changing my circumstance. Because we do like things to go the way we want them to go. We want them to end how we want them to end. But it's getting to a place in our faith journey, which, hello, are we going to really ever be there on this side of eternity? No, we are growing and walking to be more Christ-like, but will we ever be just like Christ, even though we're created in his image? No, this is a process. So I think that's kind of what we have to look at when we're in these times of lamenting.
And I think a lot of times we're striving for more when everything falls apart. And when everything falls apart and you can't get more, is what I have enough. And they're having a hard time figuring that out.
Right, because everything was going good, and then and you can even see the shift in attitude, if you will, in the shift of probably, I mean, think about it. You can be having a really good day and something goes south, and it's crazy how you can't even remember you had a good day at the beginning, because then something happens or you get that news. So it's really kind of finding that consistent faith in God, going to God for everything, even in the good and in the bad. It's a process. So our question we have for you, do your times of lament, and referencing like suffering, negative circumstances, financial ruin, those kinds of things where you're just lamenting, cause you to reflect on the goodness of God? And I like the word, does it cause you to reflect? So I am in financial distress. That just caused me to reflect on how good God is. So if you think about it, it shouldn't have had to move the needle one way or the other, because that needle should always be pointing to the goodness of God in all situations. But we are human.
We are.
We're going to make bad choices and find ourselves in circumstances that sometimes they're not easy to get out of, but by the grace of God, he is with us through it all. So as you continue reading in Lamentations for next week, go ahead and read chapter 2, and you'll be ready for TGIF. Have a great week. Bye.